Okay, so here we have another one of my infrequent vlogs. I wanted to take a few moments this afternoon to talk about the strange case of why it is that the ultra-Blairite Lord Mandelson, the twice disgraced former minister in the Blair government, has rallied to the side of Gordon Brown, as McDoom faced his own meltdown last week when a large chunk of his cabinet basically told him they didn't love him anymore and they wanted him to go away. It looked for one moment, or at least a day or two, that it was curtains for Brown, and then there was Mandy rallying to his side, making sure that Brown has, to all intents and purposes, secured his position for at least another year. Why would he do it? What is it that would make this architect of the New Labour project, this ultra-Blairite, the man rewarded by Blair, rally to the side of Brown, an arch-enemy of Blair during his years as Chancellor? And I put it to you that the thing which has been the central driving force is in fact the elephant that's been in the room, but which few have spoken about, and that is the European Union. You see, if Brown was to step down as Prime Minister, the greater likelihood is that it would trigger a general election. If there was a general election, the greatest probability is that it would return a Conservative government of whatever size majority. That Conservative government has given the solemn promise to offer the people of the UK a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, or to give it its precise meaning, the European Constitution. If the UK people get to speak on this, they'll vote it down, and therefore the treaty will be kicked into a void from which it would be very difficult for it to come back. However, by Gordon staying on between now and next June, this will allow the Irish people to vote again in the autumn, and this time round, having said no and that not being acceptable to the Eurocrats, they will say yes. The reason they'll say yes is because the state of the Irish economy is so perilous that I think they feel en masse, if you'll pardon the pun, that the greater chance of survival is to stick within the generous coffers of the EU. And so it is that I believe this autumn the Irish will say yes. The Lisbon Treaty will therefore become ratified. So when David Cameron comes to power, there won't be a referendum for the UK people, because the trap has been sprung and we're in it. And that is Mandy's greatest purpose. That is the reason why Gordon Brown will stay in power until next June. And after that, it doesn't really matter, because the damage is done. And I ask you the question, what will David Cameron do at that point? He can't offer a referendum on a treaty that's been in the interim de facto and de jure ratified. So I think, apart from a little bit of breastfeeding, I don't believe he will do very much. And therein lies another problem, because if the Conservatives cannot undo the damage that Labour causes, what exactly is the point of having the Conservatives? I think ultimately Peter Mandelson, that rabid, foaming at the mouth Europhile, is determined to drive a stake through the heart of British sovereignty, and that's what the ratification of the Lisbon Treaty, the Euro Constitution, will in effect do, and that will be Mandelson's legacy. The Prince of Darkness, so to speak, will have managed to drive a stake through our hearts rather than the other way around. That's a reason that Gordon will stumble along for the next period of time, hopelessly wounded, a man without stature, without authority, but ultimately doing the bidding of his master Mandelson, which is to stay in power until Lisbon is ratified, and that way the EU becomes more powerful, becomes greater, and the UK becomes smaller, becomes weaker. That's the ultimate agenda at play here, folks. I think it's a fundamental threat to the UK, and yet it disturbs me the way in which this is not really being spoken about. Instead we get the soap opera of Gordon Brown versus his cabinet ministers versus the Conservatives, and to me that's a side plot, and all the time the main plot is actually being ignored. I'm not sure if you see it this way, but that's certainly how I look upon this, and as I say, it's a matter of some concern to me. Anyway, that's it for today, and hope to speak to you again in the not too distant future. Bye.